Hello, my Unraveled friends. Welcome back to Tiff Unraveled. Or if you're new here, then welcome. I'm so happy to have you. My name is Tiff. Today, I want to start off with this color, one of my favorite colors, magenta. It's to me this beautiful, vibrant, joyful color, the kind of color that a little girl might choose as her absolute favorite color. And for our little 10-year-old Rebecca Baptiste, it was. I want you to picture a school gymnasium, not for a pep rally, but for a memorial. And I want you to picture it filled, absolutely filled to the brim, absolutely packed with people wearing magenta, teachers, classmates, family, community members, all gathered at Empower College Prep in Phoenix, Arizona, to honor this bright, blue-eyed girl who should have been going into the start of her 5th grade year. There was an empty seat with her name on it. Her teachers read poems. They sang songs that they had written for her. One of them, her 3rd grade teacher, said through tears, "Little did I know you were in the room to teach me more than I could ever teach you." Powerful. This was a child who, by all accounts, from this community, was fiercely loved and very protected. But that gym, that sea of magenta exists for one reason. Because outside of those school walls, Rebecca Baptiste was not protected at all. On July 27th, 2025, she was found unresponsive on the side of a remote highway in Holbrook, Arizona, with what officials called severe injuries. She was flown to Phoenix Children's Hospital, where unfortunately, sweet Rebecca Baptiste died 3 days later. Arrested and charged, I'm not going to hold you. Let's just get to the nitty gritty. Arrested and charged with her 1st-degree murder are the two people who, too many times I have to say this sentence on this channel, the two people who were supposed to be her ultimate protectors. Her father, Richard Baptiste, and his girlfriend, Anicia Woods. Two monstrous human beings. If this were just a story I was telling, it would be simple. Horrifying, but simple. But it's not. It's a story about a system that was warned over and over again. Rebecca's school alone says they made at least 12 reports to the Arizona Department of Child Safety, or DCS, in the years leading up to Rebecca's death. They saw the signs and they screamed for help. And in response, they got this bureaucratic shrug, paperwork, file open, questions asked, all good here. Until it's fucking not all good here. So today, we're going to talk about Rebecca Baptiste. We're going to talk about the beautiful little girl who loved magenta. We're going to talk about the monsters who allegedly tortured her to death. And we are going to absolutely talk about the decades-long, catastrophic, systemic failure that too frequently paves the road to cases like this. And in this case, paved the road to that lonely highway in Holbrook, Arizona. This was not only a murder. It was a murder, but it was not only a murder. This was the execution of a little girl by apathy, by people looking the other way. With that being said, guys, buckle up and let's unravel. So before we descend into, for lack of a better word, the darkness of this case, it is fundamentally important that we know who we lost here. Rebecca Baptiste is not a case file, not a statistic. None of these beautiful human beings that we talk about on this channel, I say it again and again and again and again. I don't know. I can't reiterate this enough. This is not some like headline, just like blasted all over. Like, let's talk about Rebecca. Let's talk about Rebecca. Let's tell Rebecca's story. Let's raise awareness. Let's learn from it. Let's honor this child. Rebecca was vibrant. She was resilient, especially when you know what was happening to her behind closed doors. And she was a deeply empathetic little girl, someone that we should all aim to be like. Those who knew her best, right? Her teachers at the college prep school that she attended described her as smart and kind and curious. She had dreams of becoming a teacher herself. She was inspired by the very women who fought so hard to save her. Her former foster mother, a woman who has cared for many children throughout her life, said Rebecca was, quote, the most helpful, kindest foster child I've ever had, unquote. She was a protector. She was always looking out for her two younger brothers, who you could see running and playing at her memorial, which was just this heartbreakingly beautiful sight in the midst of all of this grief. The duality of Rebecca's life is the very central, gut-wrenching tragedy of her story. Her school was a sanctuary for her. It was a place where if she came to school with her hair unbrushed, a teacher would gently pull her aside and ask to brush it for her. It was a small ritual of care that one teacher said, quote, became our thing. It was a place where Rebecca felt safe. She felt loved. She felt cared for, and she felt comfortable enough to confide in these adults about what was happening to her in her home life. And it was a place where she could just be a child. And in that space, her spirit would just shine. She wrote a poem. It was a simple, lovely thing that one of her teachers now cherishes. It was titled, of course, Magenta Pink. But it's another piece of her writing from one of her school projects that is almost impossible to read without just completely crushing your heart. She was writing about endangered animals. This 10-year-old girl who herself was so profoundly endangered wrote, quote, oh, all right, I'm going to try it. Learning about endangered animals makes me feel sad because these animals should be loved, not harmed. I hope that endangered animals will survive, unquote. It's hard to think at this point, knowing what we know now, that Rebecca was, in the most tragic and ironic way possible, writing about herself here. She understood with a clarity that every adult in power, every adult that could have taken action. Now, I'm not talking about the people who reported, I'm talking about the people in charge who have the power to actually remove this child and make her safe. She understood what they did not, which was vulnerable beings should be loved, not harmed. She hoped for their survival, but the people in charge of her survival, allegedly, were the very predators that she needed protection from. So now my least favorite part, but a necessary part, we need to talk about the alleged predators, the two people who listened to hours of horrific testimony. Well, I'm not even speaking into my mic. Can we talk about that? Okay, are we good? Okay, let's start that over. We have two people who listened to hours of horrific testimony in a courtroom detailing the torture of a 10-year-old girl and reportedly, quote, did not react apart from taking occasional notes. First up on the fantastic folks fanfare. This fucking guy. This guy is Richard Baptiste. He is Rebecca's father. And in a fucking staggering failure of the justice system, Richard was granted full custody of Rebecca and her siblings by a court in 2022. This, despite a very long and documented history of DCS involvement with the family. And when confronted by investigators with photos of Rebecca's buried and broken body, he made some startlingly weak admissions here. He confessed to using, quote, excessive force, unquote, when hitting his daughter with a belt. And he reportedly looked at the photos and said he, quote, wished he hadn't done it, unquote. And that he, quote, did not deserve to be a father, unquote. Yeah, no shit. You think? In a later bizarre twist, his own attorney actually filed to withdraw from the case, citing a reason so sensitive that he would only explain it to the judge in private. Imagine what he learned about this man that made him say, I cannot and will not represent this fucker in a court of law, respectively, Your Honor. And then we have Anicia. I don't know if it's Anisha, but who gives a shit? Because I don't care if her name is said right or not. The only name we need to say right here is Rebecca Baptiste. That's the only one who deserves to be said appropriately, correctly, and honestly, the only one who deserves to be spoken at all. But we have this fucking piece of shit, Anisha Woods. She was Richard's girlfriend of 4 years, who sometimes referred to himself as her fiance, but who gives a shit? And here's a detail, and this is coming from me, a nurse. Here's a detail that takes this from horrifying to absolutely fucking diabolical. Anicia Woods is a former nurse. Although some reports actually say that she's a certified nursing assistant. I don't fucking know, but whatever. She had medical training. Okay. She worked in healthcare. And in my opinion, only one type of person should work in healthcare, and that is people who have love, compassion, and empathy for all fucking human beings. And don't get me wrong, I have seen my fair share of people who don't belong in that field. I've seen it. I'm fortunate enough to this day, right now, to say that I work with this incredibly beautiful team of human beings who, anyway, we won't go there. They're amazing. But I have seen previously in my experience people who do not belong in that system whatsoever. And I can't even figure out sometimes what. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Why are you here? Why are you here? That I feel like is this fucking this piece of shit. And it kind of reframes everything that she did or didn't do in this case. Her professional background was not like just a piece of trivia, right? It becomes a tool that she apparently used to project authority and to justify lethal neglect. When Rebecca was found unresponsive, Miss Woods here, the trained medical professional, told police she, quote, forgot or didn't think to perform CPR, unquote, on this little girl as they drove to meet an ambulance. Let that sink in. She forgot. Even more chilling is her statement to investigators that she had assessed Rebecca's condition and, quote, decided that she would be fine, unquote. That is not a statement of ignorance. That is a calculated assertion of medical authority. I decided to be fine. I know what I'm talking about. She'll be fine. Bitch. That statement was used to justify doing nothing while this beautiful child was dying. It transforms her inaction from a passive failure into a conscious, active, and frankly, in my opinion, evil decision. On body cam footage, actually, Anicia can be seen trying to control the narrative from the very fucking beginning. She was telling officers that Rebecca was, quote, making up stories, unquote, about the abuse, and that the repeated DCS cases were just her, quote, way to try to get taken out of the home, unquote. This was not just a bystander to the abuse. She was an alleged architect of it, using her specific skill set to enable, to conceal, and to rationalize it to the very end. So, what am I talking about? I know, I get assigned myself. I just wanted to bring in a little history of the two fuck faces that are involved here. But let's get into like what happened. What happened to Rebecca? Right? Her murder was not this like sudden, unpredictable event, in my opinion. It was the final. And what could be called predictable chapter in a story that had been writing itself for like a decade. The ink in this story was a trail of ignored reports, unsubstantiated claims, and closed cases left by the Arizona Department of Child Safety. What you are about to hear is a master class in bureaucratic failure, a case study, in my opinion, in how a system that is designed to protect children can become so fucking inept that it really just ends up protecting children's abusers. This is a fucking problem. I know you know it. We know it. Let's fucking talk about it. So this family's history with DCS dates back to like 2015. Literally. When I say a decade, I literally mean decade long here. But let's focus on the period after Richard Baptiste, the man who would later admit to beating his daughter with the belts. Back to when he was granted full custody, 2022. This is when the warnings from Rebecca's school, like the people who actually cared about this little girl, became a frantic, constant drumbeat. Okay. And this is when DCS, in my opinion, when their response became also a pattern of what ended up becoming deadly indifference. So this is based on DCS's own reports and news investigations, right? This is a monument to a decade of missed opportunities to save this girl. August 29th, 2015. Report was for neglect, concerns about home condition, and possible parental drug use. Investigation, no evidence found, unsubstantiated. May 5th, 2016. The claim was neglect by mother and father, Richard Baptiste, severe diaper rash, and untreated ear infections. Investigation, no evidence found, unsubstantiated. Case closed May 12th, 2016. May 14th, 2019. Report was for neglect by mother and father, Richard Baptiste. Mother exposed child to substances during pregnancy. Investigation. Allegations substantiated. Rebecca and siblings removed and placed in out-of-home care. November 2nd, 2023. This was after Rebecca was placed back in the care of her father after being taken away, her and her siblings, back in 2019. The report was for physical abuse to a child by Anicia Woods. Scratch on neck. Investigation. No evidence found. Unsubstantiated. Case closed December 28th, 2023. October 17th, 2024. Unknown reporter, likely the school. Neglect by Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods. Rebecca had marks on hands and feet. Children were disciplined through exercise. Investigation. No evidence found. Unsubstantiated. Case closed November 18th, 2024. 5. January 16th, 2025. Report made by unknown, likely the school. Neglect by Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods. Rebecca was forced to run as punishment without bathroom or water breaks. Investigation. No evidence found. Unsubstantiated. Case closed February 28th, 2025. May 19th, 2025. Report made by unknown, likely the school. Physical abuse to Rebecca and siblings by Anicia Woods. Children being spanked as punishment. And DCS made efforts to engage family at home and school. Investigation was still open at the time of Rebecca's death. This is just a sample. The school says that they actually called at least 12 times in the final years of Rebecca's life, over and over and over, the same fucking conclusion. Allegation unsubstantiated. Case closed. DCS has even tried to defend its inaction, with one official from Arizona DCS stating that calls about children being hungry, dirty, or missing school are not the things that the department was, quote, statutorily created to investigate, unquote. The fuck are you here for, DCS? Why are you here? This is to me, breathtaking. Like, what? Admission, the building blocks, hungry, dirty, missing school, building block of neglect, the classic warning signs that are taught in every child safety seminar are apparently just poverty, and therefore not their problem. These repeated, unsubstantiated findings, these were not neutral outcomes. They were signals. They were signs. They were the green fucking light to Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods. Every single closed case told them one thing. It told them one thing. It told them that the system would not stop them, and that the school's concerns would become found irrelevant, and that they could act with fucking impunity. That is what the system that is in place to protect our children taught these parents over 10 fucking years of unsubstantiated reports and allegations. And this created a very direct link between DCS's inaction, these fuckers, and what happened next to our Rebecca. Feeling absolutely no pressure whatsoever from authorities, the family just vanished. They vanished. In early July of 2025, very shortly after that final report was made in May, the one that was still under investigation at the time of Rebecca's death, Richard Baptiste moved himself, his family, his children off the grid. They went to a remote, isolated yurt in Apache County, miles down a dirt road with no neighbors in sight. DCS would later claim that they lost contact with the family because of this move. But they didn't just lose contact. Their consistent failure to act created the very conditions that made it possible for this move to happen, in my opinion. The abusers learned that the system would not fucking stop them. And so they removed their victims from sight of the only people that were trying to help them. They removed Rebecca completely from the environment that contained the only human beings on this planet that were trying to save her, her teachers. They took her out of school. And even then, Rebecca fought. She tried. God, I'm gonna cry again. I'm such a crybaby. She tried to save herself. Before this move to this yurt, she actually jumped out of a 2-story window at their apartment complex in Phoenix. She ran up to a homeless person in the streets of Phoenix and begged them for help. And after the move, in that desolate landscape that her parents took her to, she ran away at least twice. Once on July 9th and once on July 12th, which was just 2 weeks before she was found. She was screaming for help. And the one fucking agency designed to hear her was deaf. Let them say we're crazy. What do they know? Put your arms around me, baby, don't ever let go. All right. I had to break up my tears. Such a good song, right? So good. All right. So the final, obviously horrific chapter of Rebecca Baptiste's life began to unfold on July 27th, 2025. So police responded to a call at a highway intersection, and when they arrived, they found a 10-year-old girl unresponsive, and her body was just this canvas of unspeakable trauma. The story spun by Richard Baptiste and Anisha Woods was that Rebecca had run away again, they said, and that a neighbor had found her. It was a very pathetic fucking lie that crumbled the moment that first responders laid their eyes on this girl. At that time, Rebecca was airlifted to Phoenix Children's Hospital, but her injuries were too catastrophic. And the medical reports described severe subdural hematomas, which means that there was so much bleeding on her brain that she was effectively brain dead on arrival. She was kept on life support for 3 days before she was finally pronounced dead on July 30th of 2025. You know what? I just want to put a picture up of Rebecca right here. I just want everybody to see this sweet, beautiful girl the way that she was in life. So at a preliminary hearing, prosecutors begin to present 95 pieces of evidence against these two fuckers. These two fuckers, Richard Baptiste and Anisha Woods. The testimony of Apache County Deputy Sheriff, his name is, oh my God, I can't say his name. I'm going to put it here. Cole Soderquist. He painted a picture of torture so extreme, it's impossible to comprehend. Rebecca had bruises head to toe. There were injuries to her V area and her behind, consistent with sexual abuse. She was found to be severely malnourished and dehydrated. She had damaged and missing toenails. Investigators actually learned that one of her younger brothers was also missing a toenail. And so this became a sign to them that this was just a regular fucking form of abuse in this household. Let's talk about the fact that there were burns on her lower back, right on her spine, that appeared to be consistent with cigarette burns. Let's also speak up about the fact that Rebecca was missing very large clumps of her beautiful blonde hair. And this was actually corroborated when investigators searched a bathroom near the yurt and found a hairbrush full of not only blonde hair, but blood. The scene of this crime, this isolated yurt, told the rest of the story. It had no electricity. It had no running water. The floor of this place was littered with trash and animal feces. And while Richard and Anicia shared this luxurious queen mattress, and Rebecca's two little brothers shared an air mattress, unfortunately, Rebecca was actually forced to sleep on a very thin looking pad on a very filthy floor. Why? Well, good question. Police actually asked that to the brothers of Rebecca, and Rebecca's brother said it was because she was, quote, in trouble, unquote. That one thing, right, stated by Rebecca's brother, that she was in trouble, is the key here when we start talking about the psychology of her abusers. In their warped fucking minds, it was not sadism, it was discipline. And the forced running, exercise, the beatings, the sleeping on the floor, right? It was all punishment for these supposed transgressions, according to them. Like, I don't know, telling teachers about the abuse. That was a transgression. She would get punished for that. She would get in trouble for that. And this explains their very chilling, kind of calm demeanor in court and their very self-serving lies to police. They were not just covering their tracks, right? They were operating from a place of very profound narcissistic delusion, believing to the end that their victim was the one at fault. She deserved this. She was acting up. She got what she deserved. I need another break. 2 seconds. Guys, seriously, stop. Stop with all the comments about my singing. Stop. I'm not gonna do that right now. That's not why we're here. Chill, okay? I mean, I got you later, but right now let's focus on what's important. Okay? What's important is Rebecca. No, but seriously, for real. For real. So, in the wake of Rebecca's death, 2 parallel tracks of justice begin to move forward, one in the courtroom, one in the court of public opinion. They're running like this. They're running parallel to each other, right? There's 2 things going on. We have a court of law, we have a court of public opinion. Legally, let's talk about legally. The case against Richard and his boo thing, this fucking piece of shit, Anisha Woods, this is proceeding. An Apache County judge found that there was more than enough probable cause to take the case to trial. The charges against them are severe, as they should be. First-degree murder, multiple counts of child abuse, and 2 new charges of molestation. Both of these 2 wonderful human beings have pleaded not guilty, because of course, why the fuck would they not plead not guilty? Why would we make this easy on anyone? Why would we just take accountability and all right, anyway? And of course, the state is extremely confident in its case, and the prosecutor has made very clear that in this case, there will be no plea deal offered, period. So while the criminal case focuses on the perpetrators, as it should, we should focus on the perpetrators. Yes, we should focus on Richard, and we should focus on Anisha, whatever her fucking name is. It doesn't matter. I swear it doesn't matter. But there is a second trial underway here, right? This is a trial, in my opinion. And if it's not one, it should be one. So, like, give your little John Hancock below if you agree. It should be also a trial of a system that failed Rebecca so completely. Her death has actually sparked an outrage against the Arizona Department of Child Safety. The agency right now is facing immense public pressure, as it should be. And it states that it's conducting an internal investigation. I mean, there are lawmakers getting involved here. There's a state senator. Her name is Corinne Warner. And she is launching this series of meetings aimed at reforming child protection laws, which was a move that was inspired by Rebecca's case. Leading the charge for accountability is the one institution that never gave up on Rebecca. Not once. Her school, where she shined, where she was herself, where she felt loved and safe and protected. Empower College Prep is publicly demanding change and actively disputing DCS's official timeline and all their bullshit excuses when it comes to Rebecca's case. They are refusing to let the state just completely fucking whitewash its role in her tragedy. Their persistence is really demonstrating a very powerful lesson here. When the official systems of protection fail, the burden of advocacy falls to us, to the outsiders. The school became Rebecca's de facto protective agency. Their story teaches us that, I will say it again, I've said it 1,000 times, but the see something, say something in itself is not enough. The mantra must be, and if they don't listen, say it again, say it louder, and say it to everyone. So meanwhile, Becca's I gotta take these off. I was listening to music while anyway, whatever, you don't care. Anyway, so Rebecca's 2 youngest brothers are in custody of the state, and hopefully, I hope, and I pray, because again, we're talking about a system that doesn't have a good track record with making sure that children are fucking safe. And so all I can hope is that these two boys are in a place that they finally feel safe and can start to heal from all the shit that they have been through. And the community, of course, continues to rally. They refuse to let Rebecca's memory fade away. Her school has promised that her legacy will be one of action, stating that, quote, because of her, there will be a lot of changes, unquote. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a preventable tragedy, as far too many of these cases do. Preventable tragedy. It leaves us with the story of a system that is so bogged down in statutory language and bureaucratic bullshit that it could not see the screamingly obvious truth. Here, a little girl was being tortured. It leaves us with this, to me, if you can't tell, infuriating fucking reality that the concerns of trained educators who saw this child every single day were dismissed like they were nothing. Time and time and time again in favor of a closed fucking case file. That's what happened here. The life of Rebecca Baptiste was the price of that failure. Her story is a testament to the courage of a child who tried to save herself and the dedication of the people who were closest to her and who knew her best, her teachers who tried to save her. And it is an indictment of the system that failed her. Rebecca's legacy is now a battleground. For her abusers, it was meant to be a legacy of silence. But for the system, it could have been just another tragic file in a cabinet that is, I'm sure, full of them. But because of a community that wrapped itself in magenta, one of my own personal favorite colors, if you can't tell from my channel, and they refused to be silent. Her legacy is now one of outrage, rightfully so, reform, and remembrance. I very often end these episodes talking about the lessons learned, right? The lesson here is a very painful one. We have to be the advocates. We have to be the advocates. We have to be the ones who refuse to accept unsubstantiated when our own eyes tell us that a child is in danger. We have to be louder. I want to give a final word today to this beautiful, beautiful Miss Rebecca in her own simple words from one of her own school projects. A plea that went unheard by those who were in power to help her, but that we will hear today. These animals should be loved, not harmed. I hope that endangered animals will survive. Rest in peace, sweet Rebecca. And I hope, and I'm sure we all hope, that you know how fiercely you were loved and how loudly we are fighting for justice for you today. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Go ahead and do all the stuff, like, subscribe, share, tap the bell, whatever the drill is. If you want, I really don't, I mean, I care, but I don't care. I'm just happy you're here. I'm happy that we're talking about Rebecca. I'm talking about these stories because they all deserve to be heard. And I wish I could do 1,000,000 of these a week. And I wish I could do them all. But being that this one is currently unfolding, I'm so happy that you guys hung out with me and listened to me unravel this whole thing and slightly become unraveled myself, as I so often do. Anyway, until I see you guys again later next week, take care of yourself. That is the most important thing. Stay safe, keep asking questions, and keep unraveling. Love you.